Call to order the city council meeting for Thursday, April 13th, 2023. If everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, roll call.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Okay, tonight's agenda goes through 10 L. Okay, any additions, deletions, corrections to the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as presented. Second.
Motion by Councilman Plava, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of minutes. Consider approval of the minutes from the March 30th, 2023 regular meeting. Any additions, deletions, or corrections to the minutes?
I move we approve the minutes.
Motion by
Second.
Councilman Kadada, second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. There are no public hearings. On to presentation of citizens' petitions and comments. Comments limited to 2 minutes. So if you're not on the agenda, now's your opportunity to speak. Okay, the consent agenda, 3 items tonight.
Pardon me, is that when I would say something?
Oh, yeah, if you want.
Only reason I'm in here is.
Why don't you come on up and to the podium? Sure.
Am I supposed to go over here?
Yes, please.
it.
State your name, please. And, yeah.
My name's Jared Musta.
Okay,
I live on First Avenue Northeast.
okay.
And I'm in here because I was hoping that we could notice that people are speeding up and down my street constantly. It's like a cut through on First Avenue Northeast.
Okay, the police chief is here right now.
Oh, okay.
So,
Yes, and I've been here about 15 years.
okay,
And it just seems to be this cut through right there on the back side of Main Street, you know, where
Okay.
96 comes through over to the gas stations.
Mhm.
And I don't know what we could do about it, but it's just
Okay.
people speeding through there constantly. I even have a neighbor where I've been like, I don't want to say anything, that lives on the end of the road, and we all have kids over there.
right.
You know,
right.
I mean, it's filled with kids.
Okay.
And I just didn't want it to come to a point, you know, where an
Right.
accident has to happen for something to be
Right.
done, you know.
Right.
Are you referring to Fig Street or 70th, or you're talking about on your?
No,
First
on my
Ave South?
street on First
Okay.
Avenue Northeast. Yeah, it's like 96 is over here, and you know you've got 19 that comes through over here, and so you got people cutting through, and then come over to the gas stations, and I mean it's a ton. I don't know.
Well, I think we'll mention the police chief, maybe you can chat with them afterwards even and see if we can have
Okay.
extra patrols and start with that.
Sure. Yep, I
Maybe
just
the
wanted to
truck
come and
can
voice
go
it.
speed
Yeah,
And
more than welcome.
that was about it. So
Okay.
I appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, on to the consent agenda. Consider approval of resolution 2023-12, a resolution approving scholarship of the sponsorship of the Lonsdale Snow Wizards. Consider approval of an application and permit for a 1-day to 4-day temporary on-sale liquor license requested by the Church of the Immaculate Conception. Consider approval of Minnesota Lawful Gambling LG 220 application for exempt permit requested by the Church of the Immaculate Conception. Those 3 items on the consent agenda. Would anybody like any of those pulled for discussion?
We approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. On to old business. Consider approval of resolution 2023-13, a resolution accepting a bid for a 40 by 100 public works storage facility and authorizing a down payment. Mr. Dornfeld.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. At the March 30th, 2023 meeting, staff was directed to obtain pricing to have the walls and ceiling of the proposed storage building finished. Price submitted by Worldwide for the liner package is $21,724, which increases the cost of the building to $98,363. This price includes options such as wainscot, overhangs, for compliance in the I-2 zoning district. Staff contacted several vendors for quotes on exhaust fan, but quotes were not provided as of this memo. Due to the added labor involved in finishing the interior of the building, the estimated labor cost will increase from $10 a square foot to $14 per square foot. This brings the constructing of the building to an estimated cost of $56,000, which is an increase of $16,000. The cost increase to install the liner package is $37,724, which includes materials and labor. Staff obtained pricing with the option of finishing the interior of the building from Worldwide Steel Builders, Lester Buildings, and Ram Buildings. Two contractors, Cleary and Titan, did not submit additional bids to finish the interior. Obtaining quotes with additional option caused the pricing presented at the March 30th meeting to increase due to material availability. Adding the option to finish the interior of the building causes a shift in the recommendation of which contractor to hire. With all included options, Ram Builders is now the low bidder. Ram Builders is located in Winstead, Minnesota, and carries a reputation for quality and customer satisfaction. The low bid is not the only reason staff's recommendation has changed. The R value of a pole frame building is substantially higher than that of a red iron building, saving energy costs over the life of the building. Both pole frame buildings have R25 insulation in the walls and R28 insulation in the ceiling, compared to R13 in the walls and R19 in the ceiling of a red iron building from Worldwide Steel Builders. The pricing for all three builders that submitted additional quotes are listed below. I believe you guys all have that in front of you. I don't know if you need me to read them line by line. As far as the ventilation system goes, I don't have any pricing for that yet. But both HVAC contractors that I contacted told us to really make sure that it's absolutely necessary, because it's an expensive thing, and if it's truly a storage building, if we really want it or not. They just said to make sure. Staff has carefully analyzed these options to create the best building for our needs and factoring in longevity. Based on pricing and considering all options, staff recommends the following. Ram Buildings, $177,125, which includes the building fully constructed, garage doors, service doors, the window, wainscot on the entire building, insulation in the walls, wall liner, ceiling liner, exterior house wrap, gutters, door closures, and deadbolts on service doors. To begin the process of ordering this building, RAM requires a down payment of $58,451.25. The payment terms for RAM Builders are 1/3 of the building cost with options selected put down, 1/3 due upon material delivery, monthly draws based upon work completed, and the final balance due upon completion. As stated in the March 30th council meeting, insulation paired with heat would allow us to store equipment such as the jetter, sweeper, pumps, generators, etc. with no need to winterize them. And with the new single axle plow truck arriving this fall, it would maximize our building space to allow items that need to be winterized to be stored in this new building. All builders that submitted bids advised the city that gutters would be less expensive if we hired a gutter contractor ourselves. Staff has verified that gutters are approximately half price of a private gutter contractor is hired. Ram Builders and Lester both advise it is significantly less if the city blows insulation into the ceiling ourselves. For reference, below is the pricing provided in the March 30th staff report. Again, I don't know if you want me to read through all of them line by line, I certainly can. So, with that said, the fiscal impact, this was discussed at the 2023 budget process. $30,000 was budgeted for a debt service payment for this project. Because other projects bid earlier this year came in under the budgeted amounts, there is a $216,000 available in the 2023 budget that can be used for this project. The breakdown is as follows. The cold storage debt, we have a balance of $30,000. Equipment certificates, We have a balance of 10,000. The trail project, we have a balance of 166,000. The 2023 mill and overlay and parking lot project, we have a balance of 40,000, which that 40,000 is not included in the funding available due to street conditions after this winter season. The remaining balance of $83,125 could be funded by the following: a transfer from the liquor fund to full or partially pay the balance, internally funded due to the water sewer funds, similar to funding the construction of Lonsdale Liquor. The alternatives are we could approve a cold storage building that does not conform to the I-2 zoning district. We could approve a storage building with insulated walls and ceiling which complies with the I-2 zoning district, referring back to the March 30th recommendation of Worldwide Steel Buildings, $76,639, which includes the building materials, wainscot on the entire building, and the insulation in the walls and ceiling. To begin that process, Worldwide needs $21,458.92 to be put down. We could approve a finished building from Lester, or we could not approve any buildings. The attachments, we have the resolution 2023-13 and the building quotes. That concludes staff's report, and staff is asking for a motion to approve resolution 2023-13.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing additional research.
Absolutely.
Some kick around here.
Nice, the way it's written out, it's kind of nice to compare this, a little easier.
Yeah.
It is, yeah, it is, it is.
So on your doors, your garage doors, I'm assuming those will be insulated as well.
Insulated garage doors, yep.
And they don't feel ventilation's really needed then for the use we're doing.
Well, I contacted Smesheks, of course. I contacted Better Air, and both of them, you know, is this a place of work? I said, well, not in the immediate future, but it has the potential. They said with the price of them, you know, they certainly are willing to install them. But if it's something that we're going to have 4 16-foot doors across the front, they said if you're going to start a truck and pull something in and pull something out, just,
Right.
we'll put it in gladly, but we just want to make sure that you're not putting in something that's going to cost in the realm of $15,000 to $20,000. That's just not going to be
I
necessary.
assume it can be added later.
It absolutely can be added later. You know, with those ventilation systems, when you get everything that's required for a building of that size, it's very similar to the one we have in our shop now. It has an automatic detector so that if the carbon monoxide rises, it turns on automatically. A fan turns on to blow that air out, and one pulls air from the outside in, which also has a heater on it, so it has to blow in warm air. So I don't think we need to put one in immediately.
What's in the current one? I mean, is it a big fan? I mean, is it the $15,000 to $20,000 fan similar to what you'd be putting in here in your current
Yes.
shop?
The 15 to 20,000, what they told me is that's 2 total air changes per hour. I couldn't tell you what ours is. I would assume it's similar or more. I know when that thing turns on, it's clean right now.
Right.
Right.
So
Right.
That could be an addition, I would think, at some point if needed.
I agree.
What's the life expectancy on a pole building versus a red iron? I mean, these posts, they get buried in the ground? Are they a 50-year building, or?
So the warranty is for 50 years. I actually called around and got some opinions about that factor to see, you know, is the red iron longevity actually that much more? In discussions with Rice County, if their opinion was if it was our main building, our main shop where we're going to be working on dump trucks with their boxes up and everything else, the red iron building is the way to go with the ceiling clearance, with everything else. For storage or buildings at remote locations, they recommended a pole building for the insulation value.
Because they just use a traditional, like a wood truss?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm assuming without digging into their specs that the pole isn't actually buried anymore. They all have like a concrete
Do they,
pole that goes in the ground up above grade, about a foot, and then the pole actually starts from there.
okay.
That's pretty typical now. I'm assuming that's what they have. They're a lot better than the rotting poles, for sure, that used to be.
Both Lester and Ram buildings have the same system
Yep.
that you were just talking
Yep.
about.
That wall liner isn't actually as expensive as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and I'm glad we did the research. I think it's good. I think it's
It
good
was
that-
kind of tricky. When I called and asked for additional pricing, you know, I got well, everything's rising now and everything's going up and oh, our labor costs are going up and oops, we forgot to tell you that it goes from $10 to $14 a square foot. And so I kind of had to stand my ground and just tell them, we're coming back for more here, folks. I don't know what the discrepancy is here, so.
Right.
Talking with the crew, as far as customizing the building, adding, someday if we wanted to put a mezzanine in or hang racking or anything else, substantially easier in a wood frame building than it is in a steel frame building. So that was one of the pros. The cons would be just the timing of pouring the floor on a wood versus a steel frame building. With that said, I'm confident we can get it done.
I do think with if we do choose the fully insulated route, it's a whole different package than a red iron, you know, red iron building, a storage building, that's probably the quickest way to go, like, you know, cold storage
Yep.
originally. But they are a little harder to finish interior. I think the fully insulated and liner in the Ram building would probably be the best value, I think. In my own opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's what we have basically the same thing. Our main building is a steel building. And then the storage building is the wood frame that's finished and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it seems to work pretty good, those applications. I would agree with that. I think the price is good, you know. Okay, any other comments?
No, I think we have a pretty thorough investigation of the costs.
Yeah.
Okay,
I make a motion, we enter into resolution 2023-13, approving Ram builders with the liner option.
Second.
motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you again, sir, for all your work and staff time
Absolutely, thank
researching
you.
this. Let's see, presentation of 2022 Economic Development Authority Annual Reports. No Ms. Priggy yet?
No, unfortunately, she's not here, so.
Okay, on to presentation of 2022 Community Development Report. Jamie Sheffer, Community Development Planner.
Joe, do you want to hit the lights? Thanks.
Oops. Step one.
Oops.
Jamie, was the front lights enough?
I think so, yeah.
Well, you can do one more if you like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't fall asleep.
This is gonna be a rolling report, we'll be fine.
Okay.
Yep.
warming up, I think. All right, good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the 2022 year-end Community Development Report. The topics are population, building permits, land use permits, real estate and home sales, and land development. With the first category being population, we'll take a look at the census data. The last census was conducted in 2020, showing our population at 4,686, going up one under 1,000 from the previous decade. We did look at the estimated population for 2 years, but believed it was inaccurate, going down a little bit, so we didn't include that. Neighboring cities' populations showing similar growth, with Faribault, Northfield, New Prague, and Elko New Market being larger, and Montgomery and Dundas having smaller populations. All right, getting into the building department and statistics, the first slide is about the efficiency and document security plan, which was started in 2020. The first part of that was scanning everything building related to an address file that we have on our server. That includes plans, surveys, certificates of occupancy, final inspections, and other items, along with new construction, basement finishes, decks, sheds, garages, fences, all those permits as well. So scanning those in and getting them onto the computer was step one. And then step two in 2021 was moving on to spreadsheets, which was followed very shortly by launching iWork, our new permit software. In 2022, we saw a reduction in printing with the implementation of iWork and utilized scanning and emailing to other departments in Rice County. And then the address files became accessible from anywhere because it was connected to the city server, which can be accessed at city facilities or through a VPN on a laptop if you have that installed. And then, as you know, this year we went to online-only permit applications on March 8th, further reducing staff time and printing along with cloud-based storage. We're still working on an IT policy dealing with the cloud-based storage, but the online-only permits is going well. So almost wrapped up with this. This slide shows an example of what that iWork permit software looks like for staff. We can sort by the status of the permit, if the fees were paid, what type of permit it is, the land use, parcels, and residents and contractors can go in and look up items on the permit themselves instead of needing to call City Hall, which we're still trying to educate people on to save staff time as well. So getting into the statistics, in 2022, 591 permits were processed. That doesn't necessarily mean 591 projects were completed, but that we received that many applications that staff processed. The total value of the permits based on valuation only is $9.22 million. So last year and the prior years, they had put a value for every permit, but moving forward, we're only able to capture that value for permits that are calculated. The fee is calculated based on value. So you'll see a little bit of a decrease, but going forward, we'll be able to compare those better. So total permits since 1990. In 2021, we had the hailstorm, so that's the spike you see there. But we are up in 2022 over 2020, which is more of a comparable year. Zooming in further on the last 10 years, you can kind of see what I'm referring to there. In 2020, there were 445 permits, and 2022, 591. As far as value goes, Again, this is gonna be a little bit inaccurate, using the value-based permit fees only for 2022 at 9 million. And last year showing a lot more value, due to the hailstorm and counting those over-the-counter permits that aren't based on value. Permit type, 2021 to 2022, this is where you can see the hailstorm. The most permits were the re-roofs, which went down significantly just to 108 in 2022. And siding went down about 100 from 296 to 168. We also saw a decrease in decks, fences, windows, and other permits, but an increase in accessory buildings and basement finishes. In 2022, we had 16 new single-family dwelling units. That includes twin homes, which are called attached, and then single-family detached homes. The total value of those 16 homes was 4.1 million, with the average value of 243 million. This slide shows you new homes since 1990. So 2021, there were 43, which dropped down to 16 in 2022. This is the lowest amount the city has had since about 2014, just due to lots being picked over and no new developments coming in recently, which we'll talk about more. This slide breaks out the 16 in 2022 only by subdivision, with the most being the twin homes. And with a twin home, you wouldn't think it would be an odd number, but we had one come in November and then one come in January of 23 for this year, so that's why it's an odd number there. One in Rolling Ridge, 3 in Valrose Gardens, 3 in Harmony Meadows, and 2 in Harvest Ponds. So I called around to the neighboring communities, and this is what they're reporting. So single-family dwelling unit permits, that includes attached and detached, so any twin home, townhome, or single-family detached home. Lakeville at the most at 547, down to 14 in New Prague. We're towards the bottom there. Permits by land use, the majority is residential, which is typical at 566. And then commercial having 20, industrial 4, and public 1. For those commercial permits, there were 0 new builds, 1 addition to T-Mobile, 1 repair at Macinthunes, and then miscellaneous re-roofs, re-sides, windows, signs, plumbing, and HVAC. For industrial permits, there were 4, 2 were new builds, Scan Air Filter, and the Park Place Business Development Center. And that's a photo of Scan Air Filter, I believe, in our business park this winter. No additions or repairs, but the other 2, one was a re-roof and one was in-floor heat for one of those new builds. Public permits, we had 1, which was a gas generator, which I think Joe can take credit for at the city. And this slide shows the revenue coming in from 2022. So with future tax impact at homes updated to 1,700, in 2021 that was 1,500, times 16 homes, that's about $27,200 in tax revenues per year. The future tax impact of the industrial development with just 2 buildings is $17,557 a year from the $1.65 million value. And then we've got the SAC and WAC fees for residential totaling $156,000, and for the industrial $38,000. And then the city administrative fees, this is after our payment to the building official for his inspections and the state surcharges that go to Minnesota. And that leaves us at $77,000. So for 2022, immediate fees collected were about $271,000 plus the anticipated just under $45,000 a year in property taxes. Next topic is land use permits. There were just 5 in 2022. One was the site plan and plats for scan air filter. One was an alley vacation. 2 were related to the car wash PUD amendment, allowing car washes as a conditional use. And 1 was a code change, bringing in $37.50 in fees and about $5,700 in escrows. Next topic is real estate and home sales. That went down in 2022 compared to 2021, but looks like everything's averaging out over the past 5 years. Median sale price is increasing from $305,000 in 2021 to $348,000 in 2022, along with average sale price going from just under $300,000 to $327,000. The highest sale jumped from $460,000 in 2021 up to $525,000 in 2022. And then we'll talk about land development. This is the category that I included some more current data, not just 2022, to keep you guys updated. So this residential lot inventory is as of the end of Q1. So on April 1st, this is where we were at with 70 lots left. And it's broken down by subdivision here and in another slide, I believe. So here's the map showing where those are spread out through town. With the most lots remaining in Welco Edition, where those twin homes are, there's 22. Willow Creek Heights, 15. And then the rest 7 or less. So again, in 2022, we had 16 single-family homes. In 2023 Q1, we had 5 applications. As of today, I updated this since you got your packet. We've had 9 applications in 2023, so as of today, we have 65 lots remaining. This is the chart showing who the owners are of the remaining lots. Everyone thinks it's Loomis, but now it's actually NG Properties with 18 remaining, followed by Loomis. Then we've got Tim Skolajek with 6, Freenek Incorporated with 4, Bill Markart just applied for 2, so he'll be down to 2. The Otteros with 3, Chase Real Estate with 4, and then the other category has 11. The rest of the ones coming in for 23 were Loomis as well. So speaking about what land we have available for development that's already annexed inside of city limits, this is a list of those subdivisions. So we've got Harmony Meadows 2nd and 3rd editions with up to 40 and 25 lots respectively. Shadowstone North, potential for 270 lots. Crusader Ridge, potential for 20 large lots or 55 standard lots. Bastier Point, 6 acres. That is the one that Gary Tupy is going to be bringing in for 9 lots shortly here. And the Bixby property, 31 acres up to 70 lots. And then the last one, Willow Creek Heights Southeast, potential for 280 lots. So the total potential is 600 to 800 lots within what we have in city limits, which would be a 10 to 20 year supply based on 30 to 50 permits per year, or longer if we continue having less permits per year. This is a map showing those subdivisions that are ready for development. So you have Willow Creek Heights on the bottom right, Harmony Meadows, 2nd and 3rd to the left there, Bixby up by Highway 19, Bastier Point by the Villages, and then Shadowstone and Crusader Ridge north end of town. These slides just zoom in on those subdivisions. So we've got Harmony Meadows 2nd edition shown here, Harmony Meadows 3rd edition, Shadowstone North and Crusader Ridge on the north end of town, Bastier Point, the Bixby property, and Willow Creek Heights Southeast. Talking about industrial land, our original industrial and industrial park are full. There is a couple of spots that might have room for another building if those owners choose to develop that way. For our new business park, we updated the business park marketing brochure. The sold stamps on the right are for Scan Air Filter and the new business park, showing the remaining 12.6 acres that the city owns on the top there of the business park, and the other acreage by private developers. And then on the left side, showing that land we just sold by Dollar General and the new police facility. So I went through that pretty quick. Do you have any questions or anything?
No, I think it was a good report, though. Very detailed. Good job.
Thank you. Oh, and one last thing I'll add is, now that we have the iWork software, I'll be able to easily do building reports at least quarterly for you guys, keep you updated more frequently.
Great.
So, all right, thank you.
Good. Okay, any other questions on the report or anything, or?
Very good report.
Yeah, good job.
Okay, on to consider approval of resolution 2023-14, a resolution proclaiming April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the city of Lonsdale. Jamie.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you is a resolution proclaiming April 28th as Arbor Day in Lonsdale. We were recently notified by the Arbor Day Foundation that we achieved the status of Tree City USA again for the 15th year in a row. The first year was 2009. The criteria for remaining a Tree City USA is having a tree board, which is our park board, a tree care ordinance, annual community forestry budget of at least $2 per capita, and Arbor Day observance and proclamation, which is before you tonight. And then the last stipulation is the last bullet here. We will do an online social media post and keep a record of that to submit with the next year's application. The recommendation is approval of the attached resolution, which is in proclamation format, and the other attachments are the Tree City USA Award press release, which will be in the paper, and the more in-depth Tree City USA standards for your information.
Good. Good job.
Something that we've been for about 15 years now, probably, somewhere in there.
Are they still gonna have anything at the school? Have you heard much about that? We used to have an event there periodically.
I guess we aren't doing that anymore due to lack of volunteers and other things.
Okay.
Move we approve resolution 2023-14.
Motion by Councilman Kadada.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of a proposal for professional services in the hourly not to exceed the amount of $27,957 submitted by WSB for Public Works Storage Building. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. With the city budgeting for a new storage facility at the Public Works facility in '23, staff obtained bids for the building, which were presented at the last council meeting and earlier this evening. Another component of the project is complying with City Code 153.066, which is our site plan requirements. To comply with City Code, the city is required to submit a survey and site plan with additional required information contained on them. Have the Planning Commission review the site plan, make recommendation to the City Council, who would have final approval of the site plan. This is the same process and documents that we would require any proposed commercial or industrial project to submit for review and presentation and approval. Staff did provide WSB with a copy of the city code regarding site plans for the basis of the proposal. Summary of the proposal is that it would contain a topo survey, their certificate of survey, owners and encumbrances report, title commitment, and then preparing construction level plans, again, in accordance with our site plan requirements. Those plans would include the site plan and typical section for the concrete pad apron, grading, drainage, and erosion sediment control plan, and then structural slab design, plans, notes, and details for the concrete pad. Purpose of the plans are to obtain quotes for the excavation, grading, restoration, and concrete installation. The proposal is consistent with the current WSB agreement and fee schedule. In reviewing this with the city engineer, we did discuss that the proposal is conservative. It's hourly not to exceed. At this time, we're not recommending that soil borings be completed. There hasn't been any settlements in that area, and the city's been maintaining it as a gravel surface for the last at least 20 years. We do intend to auger some holes just to confirm that the subgrade, there's not any poor soils, any black or anything like that where we need to be. And then the intent is to have the necessary engineering completed, reviewed, and presented to the Planning Commission. We had a Public Works meeting this afternoon, and are proposing to bring that to the June Planning Commission for review, and then City Council at the end of the month, which should work with the plans of construction of the building and all that. I suppose the imminent stuff would be getting the site work done, the grading, so that when they get here, they've got the finished grade to work from. The fiscal impact to the city will not exceed the quoted price of $27,957. Alternatives would be to not approve the proposal by WSB, which would result in further negotiations or soliciting proposals from other firms. And then included with the staff report is WSB's proposal for the professional services for the storage building. If the council has any questions, we would be happy to entertain them.
I think this is why we have our city engineers on. This is who we picked, and there's no issues.
Make a motion to approve the proposal for professional services, not to exceed $27,957 to WSB.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Palava, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discuss and provide direction regarding the 2024 street and utility reconstruction project. Shabani Bison, City Engineer.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. In your packet is a memo outlining some considerations for council regarding a 2024 street project. So I'll just run through the report. There's a couple maps in the back that will give you a visual of the areas that we're talking about. So staff has discussed this a couple times at our coordination meetings related to what areas would potentially warrant for a project next year, given pavement conditions, maintenance, water main breaks, things like that. So I'll just run through three options presented in the memo. So the first option is just north of here, the area of Ash Street between 3rd and 5th Avenue Northwest, 4th Avenue from 19 to the north, 5th Avenue north and south of CASA 4, Birch Street between 3rd and 4th, and that's about 4,000 feet of streets to be improved. These streets were originally constructed in 1971, and with the pavement condition index rating that was completed last year, these streets are in poor condition, and you can see that visually by just driving with all the cracking and general wear and tear. Part of option one staff discussed is potentially for council to consider paving Mill Street since it's adjacent to this area. As you know, it's currently a gravel road, really serving that feed mill property. And so that's a consideration. Gravel roads have ruts and there's, maintenance with that, but it is somewhat unique, and then it really serves that one property. And it's just something we wanted to throw out there to council to consider since it is adjacent to the project area. And then I had mentioned just part of this process was to identify, where are we seeing water main breaks? Where do we have smaller size pipe or older pipe that would need to be replaced, as that's kind of been the city's process with these projects. And so in the packet currently there's 6-inch cast iron pipe or ductile iron pipe. The city standard is to upgrade that to 8-inch plastic or PVC pipe. And so that would be completed on the streets listed on Ash Street, 4th and 5th Avenue. Along with that, staff kind of discussed where there are issues with stagnant water. Are there opportunities to loop or, connect any gaps in the water main system? And so forth to the south along Mill Street, there's a need for a connection there to address water quality issues and continuous flushing of that hydrant on 4th Street. There has been a history of water main breaks, 4 breaks on 5th Avenue between CASA 4 and 19. And in talking with Joe, there's likely maybe a history of other water main breaks based on just staff historical knowledge. With these projects, there'd be sanitary sewer repairs as needed, and then storm sewer drainage items addressed as well. So that's what we're calling option 1 for project area to consider. It is staff's recommendation to go with that one just based on the pavement condition and maintenance history. Option 2 is east of there. So this area is Birch Street between 2nd and 5th, 2nd and 3rd Avenue Northeast between 19, and then just north of Birch Street where the kind of newer developments are located. 4th Avenue and 5th Avenue between Baldwin, and again, north of Birch to the limits of the newer developments, and Baldwin between 19 and 5th. That's about 4,600 feet of streets. The PCI ratings last year rated those between fair and poor condition, and you can tell when you drive out there. They don't look as bad, but there's more to it than visual. Again, these streets were originally constructed in 1971. However, there was a mill and overlay completed on these streets except for 2nd Avenue in 2015. So it would be 9 years from next year. And it's my understanding that was kind of a short-term fix as those streets had deteriorated, and there was discussion about doing a full reconstruct, but that wasn't supported by the residents at that time. So other areas were prioritized with that. And then as far as 2nd Avenue, that one had water main replaced from 19 to Birch Street in 2001. And I believe that was a gravel road that went to paved with curb and gutter. So that's, 23, 22 years old. So if the council wants to consider that one, we'd look with the feasibility report, if a mill and overlay would be likely with that. And then water main replacement would also be incorporated in these areas on 3rd, 4th, and 5th between 19 and Birch, and then Birch between 2nd and 5th. And like I mentioned, the water main on 2nd was already replaced. And then as far as water main break history, there's one documented break on Birch Street. Again, these projects would evaluate sanitary sewer repairs and then drainage as well. And then the third option is Main Street between Railway and 70th. There's been 2 recent water main breaks near Dogwood in the last year. And, as you know, that's a Rice County road, so there need to be a discussion and agreement in terms of developing the project and cost sharing. And then, Main Street to the south was repaved in 2018. So really, we'd like to get council's feedback. Maybe I'll just run through the schedule. We laid out a schedule here just so that if council does elect to move forward with the project, this is the preliminary schedule we'd be looking at so that we, kind of back in getting bids in the winter, early winter here. So depending on where council wants to go with this project, or where you'd go with selecting a project, we would bring back a proposal to complete a feasibility report at the May 11th council meeting. That's, the first step in the process in terms of developing projects and assessing. And then that feasibility report would be developed. We could consider conducting a neighborhood meeting prior to the council receiving that report. I've done that in other cities, and I know in Lonsdale it's maybe been after the feasibility report, but we can discuss that, what the best approach is. And then we'd have a public hearing as required by state statute 429 to assess at the last meeting in September, the first meeting in October, and then have the council approve plans and specs with the idea of bidding the project in January. And then the assessment hearing would follow that in February, and then awarding the construction contract with construction to occur next summer. And so again, really after council consideration and discussion, that feasibility report would really get more into detail to identify the existing conditions, the scope of the project, what the proposed improvements would be, and the costs and financing. So with that, we have 4 alternatives, one for each option and one to not pursue a project at this time. And again, staff does recommend option 1 or alternative 1, just based on those streets just north of here really deteriorating over time, and the history of water main breaks and just maintenance required over the years. So with that,
All right, thank you.
your comments.
I guess my question is, as far as the trail system, I know we were going to focus on that for a while. After this year's project, what would you say the status is on that? Is there more urgent trail work? Or what do you think is the more?
I'm trying to think back to our trail condition map that we did. I know that probably doesn't get used a whole lot, but that trail on Ash Northeast is in pretty tough shape, kind of on the south side of the library and the villages. We've got the Willow Creek Trail, that's always there. Otherwise, I guess I really don't know too much about the trails on the south side of town.
All in all, the trails on the south are, they're relatively new. When you get back by the archery range and the fishing pier. If we wanted to address the Willow Creek Trail, just in my experience, I think it's better the way it is. Just from a maintenance standpoint,
Great product to use in there to curb the rodents.
I just,
I guess all my point was kind of like this year, what's the priority? Where do we want to spend the money, if we want to spend the money? Like this year we did trails in lieu of streets, of course. And I don't know if we want to continue that or if we want to focus on streets. And I've heard some concerns lately about the tax increases with the valuations and all that kind of stuff, and plus some of the landowners are still paying assessments, and that's why I'm just to make sure we're all on the same page with all that. The one thing about the continuation of Main Street, do you think that's important if those parcels to the north of town develop in the near future? I mean, are we thinking to do a upgrade water system on Main Street?
I think it's a necessity. Just in my, in my experience in Lonsdale here, if I've been on, say, 50 water main breaks,
Right,
70% of them are on Main Street North.
right. And then you're accomplishing the twofold, like you say, it's the breaks and plus the upgrade for future development. And I would think in my vision, that would probably be more of a priority than, although, I mean, I get the streets are bad north of here too, but I just think that, with that parcel right at the end of Main and Fig for sale now, I would think likely there would be some development in the near future. So I don't know if that would move that project up the ladder a little bit or not. But just my thoughts.
It wouldn't be a bad idea, that's for sure.
So that would entail you having discussions with the county. Typically, those discussions, have they turned out, I mean, they must be somewhat successful. I mean, we've did them in the past. And
Yeah, I think as long as, we provide them enough time to plan and account for stuff, they've been good to work with. I think in '04 or maybe '03, there was a mill and overlay of Main Street, and then,
Right.
As this was discussed in 2018, they paid for a portion of the pavement as well, so,
Right.
yeah, they've been good to work with over the years.
And would you do any additional improvements? Would you just do the infrastructure on the street, or would you try to add any type of walkways or sidewalks, or not continue anything that way, just do the street?
I guess our thoughts at the staff level were just do the water main and put back what needs to get done. We certainly could look at sidewalks to see what improvements would be affected by that.
I guess my point is, I mean, you have sidewalks going south, of course, all the way down to Idaho. You may want to consider.
Yeah, that would be a trail connection, because there's that trail that comes right to Main in 96 there.
Right. I don't know if you'd encompass that, within the street or the boulevard or whatever.
I know that was talked about a few years back when we did do that trail connection through the DRS park. It would definitely be something to look at if we do reconstruct that, to put at least one side of sidewalk.
Right, right. I mean, that would be my, if we're gonna do a project, I think that would appear to be the priority, I think, it lays into the future lots. I would suspect that, that Pika property or that area north is likely to grow next. I think, as you could tell by the report, we're basically running out of, selective lots. They're all infill now, of course.
Get ready for the next boom, right?
Right, yeah, hopefully, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I guess that would be my opinion, is to start those discussions and then maybe get an estimated, perform estimated cost or something. But,
We can work on that in the budget cycle and see if
right.
the options could
Right.
be.
Unless you have some other opinions.
The option one area is in really tough shape, though. I hate to see it get pushed off.
Right. And we could do that instead, if you just want to have neighborhood meetings. I know
Well,
a couple
I mean-
of residents were uptight about the taxi.
And that's understandable, but also we have to look at the bigger
Right.
picture. We have to keep Lonsdale maintained.
Right.
I think we have that in every project. There's always a little bit of opposition. And is it really opposition to the project, or is it just about the assessment? I mean,
Right.
they admit that work needs to be done, but nobody's happy to pay
To
for
pay,
it.
right.
Right. So yeah, so it's either, either neighborhood meetings and get the input from that, or it's have the discussions with the county. Or maybe you do both and see which one becomes more priority.
I wonder how receptive the county would be for like a 2025 with this out here in 2024 to put more money into the funds.
Yeah. they should be rescinded.
I agree, I agree.
They should, oh, that's funny.
Time
What?
to budget.
Yeah, because I just think, I mean, you know, if, for example, if the Pika property did sell, then it's gonna become really urgent to upgrade that. Especially if that's where a lot of your water main breaks are.
Mm.
But we can start with simultaneous paths, I suppose, and decide once we get some cross inputs.
I mean, that option one, that's about the same size as our, or even option two, that's about the same size as our usual project area, so we got kind of a rough idea of what it would cost.
And then, I don't know, would you improve that Mill Street? I don't know if.
How would you assess that? I mean, it's almost like it's a private road, sort of, you know,
Right.
it serves one business or catches to the back of the elevator property, but
And I just don't know if it's worth improving anyway.
I know,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
just it.
Yeah, I don't know either. We just included it because we wanted to make sure that we included all of the roads.
Yep.
I didn't want something to miss and then 3 years later,
Right,
we're
Right.
dealing with it.
Right,
right.
right.
You know, yeah, when you're looking at assessing that, if you're trying to do benefit, you know, do those residential properties to the north have benefit from it? Maybe a nuisance benefit.
Right, it was a dusk or whatever, but.
You know, but really it comes down to the feed mill.
Right, and still,
know.
that's kind of a funky intersection where it hits 19 anyway.
Yep.
You know. So I don't know if I would mess with that.
Yeah, that might be, just pull it, delete that out of the option.
Right. Are there utilities in that street, city?
Water main for sure, and some storm. You know, we'd have to go in there and loop that water main from Fourth to that. There's a hydrant on the north side of Mill Street, maybe 3/4 of the way. You know, it's probably about 100 feet from Fourth Avenue. A hydrant there that we would, you know, connect that water main, because that's, the main issue is water quality in that area, because Fourth Avenue is a dead end to Highway 19.
And I'll just add, that was maybe part of the consideration with that water main extension to potentially, since you're having to excavate the road for that, look at paving it. Just going back to Main Street, there's a 12-inch trunk water main along 70th that would get tapped into to serve the properties to the north.
So you want need to improve Main Street?
Maybe not, just because the surrounding water main system is newer pipe and it's larger pipe. So it could be enough to serve the undeveloped property to the north without upgrading Main Street at that time.
Yeah, because it was designed to improve, you know, the Eagle Creek and the Shadow Stone all the way out to the old
Okay.
Brown Farm. So if that 12-inch could encompass all that, that's great. You know, maybe you have to reanalyze the, you know, what the design there. I don't know if it factored in the Pika acreage or not, which is the 66 acres on this side. And you can't, you don't have to do it now, but I guess my point is you should analyze that 12-inch can handle that whole area.
Yeah, and that would be easy to do because the next item with the water comp plan, the model was updated, so
Right.
you could plug that in and review it.
I think regardless whether we do Main Street or not, we should start the discussions with the county, because like
Yep.
we said, they can budget,
Yep.
you know, maybe it's
Mhm.
2-year budget or whatever. But, you know, I don't care, I mean, we certainly can do a neighborhood meeting for this area if you like, and get the input, and,
Like, you know, like she said earlier, the mill and overlay was, you know, was a temporary, you know, fix, you know, a long time ago. Or was that an option to us?
no, that's the other one, that's
That was the
over,
other- I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
But still, I mean, the road's in bad shape. The
Yeah.
longer we wait,
Right.
Yeah.
you know,
We were in that on Third Avenue Northwest, and that's gotta be 10 years ago, and I think that was the next step. And then there was a little bit of opposition from the residents
Right.
at that point.
Right,
Ideally, we probably should've just kept going.
yeah, yeah.
you can't keep kicking the can down the
Right.
road,
Right.
just waiting for another day a better day for it to happen.
Right.
No one likes to pay assessments, we all get that, you know, we don't like sitting here, but we need to, you know, look at the big picture and keep Lonsdale, kept up. It's maintenance and the roads are, how many times can you go to you know whose house and fix a water main in front of her house? You know, so we need to, you know, we need to keep up with the maintenance. And it costs money, we know that.
Okay.
I guess something I would just like to add, if the council decides to select a different option than number one, regardless of which option you select, if it's not number one, the pavement is gonna have to be addressed in that area. Whether it's a Band-Aid fix like we did in the lower northeast, but something will have to be done.
Well, then I think we should have the neighborhood meeting, I definitely think so. So if you wanna put that on the schedule, and we'll start with that process, and like I say, I do think simultaneously we should be in discussions with the county on Main Street.
And I think in the area in option one, was that not one of the first ones that we looked at doing? And they said no, and then we moved them to another area?
I think we started on
Or did we start?
Second Avenue Northwest. The residents
Okay.
had a lot of issues with sewer backups or something that one spring.
Right.
We started there, and then Third, and then
By now,
we
they'd have it
bounced
almost
out of
paid
there.
for,
Yeah.
if we'd have done it, you know, and it was
And their
cheaper.
assessment would have been a lot less.
Yes, it would be, yes.
They're a lot. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they were 8,000s in 2007.
Yeah.
And they're 12-ish, 14-ish now.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
So,
I remember when we did the one over by the Catholic Church, you know, we had the neighborhood meeting and there was all that opposition, and then we moved somewhere else, and then a year later, 2 years later, it's like, when are you gonna do
Right,
ours? And
right.
So,
Right, right,
they recognized the need, it was just,
right.
it was uncomfortable at first.
Okay,
Would you prefer to just have it at a regular council meeting, or gonna do
we can,
a fun
yeah,
meeting?
yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
tie it together.
Just pick one, whatever. Okay,
Not a whole lot of old roads in the town, you know, old,
right,
Yeah.
remaining.
right.
The 71s and
I'm feeling old.
Older than David?
That's true, that is young, but that doesn't mean.
Okay, anything else on that item? Okay, on to presentation of comprehensive water system plan. Shivani?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So an update to the water comp plan was initiated last summer. And it was initiated by I believe, the former Public Works Director, with a couple items to note. There were issues with pressures in the industrial park area and a need for rehabbing the booster station. Also, the previous plans and models was from 2004. And so typically you want to update your plans every 10 or so years. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of do a high-level review of this comp plan. It's pretty comprehensive and detailed and a lot of technical analysis. That's not my expertise, but in your packet, I tried to just in a memo kind of summarize and get to, you know, what the needs are in the capital improvement plan. We also have this trigger chart in the packet and kind of a timeline just to visually incorporate all the different improvements. And so the comp plan really updated the water model for the city, and that was used to analyze the water system, the pressures, fire flows, things like that, and then to make projections based on growth and water demands, and project the improvements to the system. And so those improvements or analysis was done for the supply piece where you'd have wells, storage, which is your water towers, and then water treatment, and then just piping as well. And like I mentioned, CIP was developed. It's in the memo with a timeline and costs. I'll just backtrack a little bit. I'm sure you already know the existing system There's 3 wells in town, known as wells 3, 4, and 5. Well number 3 is not operational at this time. He's got 1 water treatment plant, 1 water tower that is undersized at 300,000 gallons, and then 2 pressure zones to serve the city, and 1 area with a booster station for higher pressure. So now I'm just going to kind of get into the CIP and the improvements, kind of based on order of what the analysis showed in terms of timing. So the booster station rehab, which again kind of initiated this update, is ending its useful life. Some upgrades need to occur, and so staff had raised the question is, do we even need that? Can we connect it to the lower pressure zone or just have 1 pressure zone? And so an analysis was done with monitoring the pressures and then modeling it and analyzing that. And what it came out is if it was removed, the pressures would be below the 10 state standards or 60 PSI on average. And so it's not recommended to remove that booster station. The rehabilitation is recommended. It would be the same size and capacity location. So that is recommended in 2024. And then the next thing I'll talk about, just kind of going down the line in the CIP, is the water tower. So as you probably are aware, the city has designated some land in the industrial area for potentially a new water tower. That was identified in your 2016 water supply plan as well, and that water tower is needed to provide better fire protection and water pressure stabilization throughout the city. It's my understanding the current water tower is maybe undersized and is reaching the average day demands, or what you would need to have based on the city's demands, and it's reaching the limit of your storage capacity requirements. And so in the report, there's analysis on having 1 water tower or 2, with rehabbing the existing one and building a new tower, or just rehabbing the existing. And so that analysis recommended to rehab the existing at a later time frame, with first constructing that new water tower. And with the water tower component of this, it's also recommended to install altitude valve and then complete a water main loop or connection on Lonsdale Boulevard, so that you're having stabilized pressures and the system is efficient. And so kind of the next step that we would recommend with that is to do what's called a siting or storage study. I mean, you already know where you've cited it, and that has been incorporated, that location, in the report and in the model. But really this study would take it a step further and identify, is a water tower appropriate, or could it be an underground storage tank with pumps? It would kind of analyze life cycle costs and things like that. It's a typical kind of next step. The other component of that study would be to determine if well 3, if that staff is analyzing whether to seal that, or potentially that could be rehabbed and then piped to the water treatment plant, and that could be the well that you use instead of a new well, since you would need a new well if you're building a new water tower to provide that supply. And so kind of taking it to the next step with this siting and storage study would analyze that as well, as staff is still kind of determining what to do with well number 3, and really making sure you're doing the right thing, because that is a well that could be potentially used. And then also in 2024, it's recommended to do a utility rate study, so that you can do that analysis to determine how these improvements could be funded. Another piece of the water comp plan took a look at treatment. And so with a potential new well or rehabbing well number 3, that's going to add additional flow, and so you need additional capacity to treat that. That treatment plant would also need to address softening, as we previously talked about chloride reduction and things like that. And so the trigger chart kind of goes through on the right here the proposed maintenance with the booster station rehab, which it's my understanding some type of improvement needs to occur based on its current life. And then the current water tower rehab as well, and that's projected in 2034 with a new water tower in 2028 based on the demand projections. And so with the new water tower, again, that study would tell us, well, do we need a new well? Can we use well number 3? And then just kind of goes through a scenario based on that result, when you would need to do the other improvements in terms of water treatment. And then, of course, a new well versus rehabbing well number 3. And then so again, the booster station rehab, this water tower siting and storage study and a utility rate study is recommended to be completed next year. We really have it in the 0 to 5 year category, but it would start the process to give you time because these are very costly improvements. Based on the projections, the water tower 2 construction is projected in 2028. That's when you really start getting into these huge costs of a little under $5 million. And then in 10 to 15 years, rehab at water tower 1 in 2034, treatment plant capacity 2035 with a new well and water main. So the report did not take into account rehabbing well number 3. That discussion came after this was put together. So it assumes that well number 3, like currently, would not be in operation. And then 15 to 20 years, no improvements. These plans are developed for a 20-year lifespan. And so the analysis identifies that your needs would be met, for the next 20 years with these large improvements. I do want to just talk about the funding. There are funds available through the Public Facilities Authority, State of Minnesota, Rural Development. We'd recommend the city take a look at these improvements and submit an application to get them on the project priority list, the PPL. That's kind of the first step to put it out there, and then those projects are ranked and then considered for funding in a separate process. So that is certainly a large component of this, along with the utility rate study and what potential grants or funding could be provided for this. So that's all I had.
Okay.
If you have any questions?
That's quite a bit.
Okay. It is, and so that's why, try to just highlight in the memo.
Yeah. No, it's
These
good.
are the
It's
needs
a good
in the
report.
charter
My
chart.
question is on well 3. I think originally you were talking about capping it. I mean, do they rehab wells? Is that a real opportunity, or is that hard to say?
So that discussion started with just updating the quotes. They were dated for sealing the well. At that time, all the well drillers that I called, Trout, Renner, Bergeson, Caswell, really recommended fixing that well. Once we are guaranteed no freezing temperatures, they wanted to try to fire it up to exactly pinpoint what is going on. As far as all the issues that have been brought up in the past, multi-aquifer, perforated casing, things of that nature, all of those things are grandfathered in with the state of Minnesota and would not be required. We wouldn't be required to have any special permits or anything to keep that well. After hearing that, I was just left with no option but to entertain, after seeing the price of what a new well is,
Right.
to get this thing back up and running. Because when it's sealed, I mean, it's gone forever.
Right, right, right. Would that be the first step in this whole water system plan, is to develop another well? I mean, that well, would that be the first step? And if so, is there funding available to rehab that well? Or is the rural water and all that just for new wells and towers and?
I guess what I'll speak about for the funding is, from what we're finding, the cost of rehabbing that well is significantly less than sealing it. So, with that said, that money has been budgeted for the sealing of that well. If it's repurposed, I guess if we could consider that step one of this process, that's what we would consider. I would say the booster station rehab is the real, as far as this report is concerned, that would be the first step.
What about if we did rehab well 3, what about getting it to the treatment plant? Because that's, right now, that well isn't tied to the treatment plant, so we had all that cost to get it over there.
That is correct.
Yep.
So we need to, I think we need to look at what the cost of rehabbing and that piece, and then does that equal, or is that greater than a new well,
Or could we,
Plus the cost of sealing.
right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So you have three components
or do we,
that you're dealing
do we
with.
drill another well near the treatment plant? And it might be cheaper to do that than it would be to
Right.
rehab that one.
Right.
Or we rehab it and it becomes a reserve like we have been doing if we had to have an emergency one.
Right.
Because I don't think we want to pump 3 into the system unfiltered. I don't,
No.
we got the nice clean water in there, we don't wanna throw that unfiltered water in there.
It's a nice way of putting it.
I had to think on that one for
Yeah.
a minute.
That is a priority that staff has, is we've done all this to treat our water.
Right.
It's certainly not going to be entering the system on any basis untreated.
We don't wanna go backwards.
No.
Right. Okay, are we looking for any decisions tonight, or just kind of a?
I think just a decision on accepting the report.
I'll make a motion to accept the presentation of the comprehensive water system plan.
Motion by Councilman Palava,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, consider approval of resolution 2023-15, a resolution accepting a bid for the fire hall concrete driveway removal and replacement project. Mr. Erickson?
All right, thank you, Mayor and members of the council. The driveway at the fire department has been determined to have met and exceeded its useful life. To extend its useful life, a number of years ago, we seal coated the concrete. It served its purpose, but as you can see now, the seal coat is popping off and it's bringing parts of the concrete and it's eroding and chunking off and is to the point where it needs to be replaced. The project was bid last fall, but we unfortunately didn't receive any bids. Last month we re-advertised the project, sent the bid documents to a number of area concrete contractors. Bids were due at 10 a.m. March 31st. At the time of the bid opening, only one bid was received, which was submitted by L.A. Cadata and Sons in the amount of $76,935. Staff did review the bids and believes it to be competitive. In addition to removal and replacement of the driveway, the following repairs are also being made, or proposed to be made. Excuse me. Extend the parking lot 8 feet to the west to allow for additional parking by the front door there, or the main service door. Remove and replace 14 inches of the floor underneath the garage adjacent to the driveway. When that floor was poured, kind of like a threshold was poured in there, like a metal tube or half a tube, and it's rotted and crumbling. So when I worked with Fire Chief Fluke at the time, we talked about cutting into the floor 14 inches past that, and then tying it in and repouring it without that metal threshold. And then replacing the 8-inch diameter bollards. I think we had talked about that, if we can salvage them or not, just depending on how they were poured. We'll, I guess, have to evaluate that at that time. The fiscal impact, as I stated, the bid was for $76,935. We do budget $7,000 per year for building repairs. In 2020, we had a total of $57,000 budgeted for the project, but it wasn't completed at that time due to COVID, and pricing was just everything was going crazy at that time. Since then, we've continued to budget the $7,000. So based off of the amount in 2020 and in subsequent years budgeted after that, just under $80,000 has been saved up and is available for this project. I did have the current fire chief, Joe Pumper, take a look at it. He recommended that we go with the bid and get the project done. Alternatives would be not to approve the resolution and not proceed with the project. And then attachments to the staff report, proposed resolution 2023-15, L.A. Cadata and Sons bid, and then a picture of the driveway that we're looking to replace.
Now, with the facade project, would this be done in conjunction with that? Because they'd be redoing the sidewalk and stuff at that time? Would that?
Yep, so they are not proposing to do the sidewalk, and we're actually staying out of there as well.
Okay.
The sidewalk is actually in fairly good shape relative to the rest of the driveway. Yeah, so when it comes to County Road 4, it's even spot curb and gutter repair.
Okay. I know there's some discussion about moving the sidewalk back from the curb and stuff, so they're not interested in doing that?
Not in that location.
Oh, okay.
They did do that along the county shop in the J.C. Park.
Okay, all right.
Make it a little more safer.
What's their plan then for vehicle storage for the fire department?
We talked about a phased approach.
Okay.
So, doing half, and, whether, I guess we'll just have to coordinate that, whether it gets all removed at once, or, gets removed and poured, and then removed and poured. But the intent is to have a phased approach. They may have to, use the west door here as well, if they need to get the rescue squad out of there or something. Because that rescue squad goes on every call.
Right.
And obviously, mainline pumpers and stuff as well, so.
Rent some big tents and put it next door, right?
Okay, looks like the only bid.
So motion to approve resolution 2023-15.
Motion by Councilman Webb,
Second?
second by Councilperson Fuhr. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval of resolution 2023-16, a resolution approving a transfer not to exceed $2,000 from the liquor fund to the park fund for the July 19th, 2023 Fox 9 Town Ball Tour event. Mr. Rick?
All right, thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The park board's been discussing providing additional activities with the 2023 Fox 9 Town Ball Tour stopping in Lonsdale here. The Aces will be playing the Norwood Indians. We've reserved the Rayanne Field for the day, which is a proposed location for some of these additional activities. The Aces will be providing concessions, live music, and then working with Fox 9 on business interviews kind of throughout the day as they'll be here. In addition, Fox 9 requires that the Aces allow Fox 9s or their preferred vendors, ice cream truck, food truck be present, so we have provided them our application for that. The Aces prefer not to have any additional food for sale before or during the event. Obviously, concessions are main revenue for them throughout the season. We'll continue to work with the Aces and Chamber to make the event as community orientated as we can. We've researched what other communities have done in the past. Watertown is a good example with the bouncy house, the face painting, batting cage. We obtained quotes for some items and are requesting funding for support for this. When we did our budget back in, well, almost this time last year, right? Last summer, this wasn't even on our radar. So I think it's a great opportunity to promote and market Lonsdale and get our name out there. Some of the estimated costs, face painting, $180, $250 for the bouncy house, $350 for inflatable speed pitching. Every guy's going to want to do that, see how fast he can pitch the ball, right? A T-ball challenge where you can, kind of sounds like it's for kids, but it's a blow up and it's just got a T, and you can kind of, if you hit this hole, it's a home run, or this is a triple, or whatever. Kind of some, hitting and throwing opportunities. Delivery and setup, and then, it says generator rental, but we had looked at pricing out a generator, and it was almost $500 for a generator. So we looked at what it costs to get an inverter generator, nice and quiet, where you can actually have it running, and it's not like, what's that? So Public Works looked at that, and about $650 would get the generator for this, but then also for day-to-day use in the back of a pickup, working on with storm sewer stuff or just anything in general that needs power when you're out in the field. Total came to just under $1,800. We're recommending a donation or a transfer from the liquor store of $2,000, not to exceed that. We did talk about it briefly at our liquor store meeting last week, I believe it was. Everyone seemed on board to fund it with the available funds at the liquor store. So, unless there's any questions, staff would recommend approval of Resolution 2023-16.
So moved.
Motion by Councilman Karada.
Second.
Second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Richard Bell at grade 1, step 5. Excuse me, $18.43 an hour for a seasonal public works position. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. The next 4 items are relating to seasonal public works conditional job offers. Kind of in summary of all of them, we budgeted $40,000 this year for seasonal employees. We received there were a total of 8 applicants. We interviewed 7 for the 4 positions. In this case, Bell's worked as a seasonal employee for the last 2 years and is a good worker. Because the position's seasonal, he can't work any more than 6 months from the first date of him starting. Because of that, the city and employee don't need to contribute to PERA, which saves the city money. Based on the proposed timeline, seasonal employees would start on or about May 2nd, May 15th, and then June 6th. Again, $40,000 was budgeted. We did increase the pay to $16.06 per hour this year. Mr. Bell did request an increase above that. We did talk about it at the staff level and feel that $18.43 is is probably justified with the experience, doesn't need a whole lot of hand-holding, if any at all. But then also has a Class A license, which is a benefit that he's also able to drive our tandem, or not our tandem, but our single axle trucks, basically everything in our fleet that we have, he can operate. So kind of gives us another person to, if we need to, we'll be trucking millings here for a week or so, or a couple days, things like that. So staff would make a recommendation to make a conditional job offer to Richard Bell, grade 1, step 5, $18.43 an hour.
So moved.
Motion by Councilperson Fear,
Second.
second by Councilman Palava. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Reed Peterson at grade 1, step 1, $16.06 an hour for a seasonal public works position. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Staff's next recommendation is to make a conditional job offer to Reed Peterson, seasonal public works employee, grade 1, step 1, $16.06. He interviewed well, was polite, and seems like he'd be a good fit with our staff and good at the job. That's besides him being in college and with the ability to start May 15th, that's really the only difference with this recommended conditional job offer.
Other than his grades, he looks like he'd be the smartest kid in the room there. Holy cow. All A's, dean list, top senior.
You should be able to run a lawnmower very good.
Yes, exactly.
Make a motion to make a conditional job offer to Reed Peterson at grade 1, step 1.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Kadada, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Tate Lawson at grade 1, step 1, $16.06 an hour for a seasonal public works position. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Staff's next recommendation would be to make a conditional job offer to Tate Lawson, seasonal public works employee, grade 1, step 1, $16.06. Lawson said he applied for the position for a summer job and to stay busy. Again, interviewed well, has some experience with the equipment he'll be using. Was polite and seemed like he would fit in and do a good job. So that would be our recommendation. And he would be looking at starting on or about June 5th. And when during the interview, not in any fall sports, so he'd be able to work, see weather permitting, if there's a drought or something like that, virtually up to Labor Day.
Motion to approve Tate Lawson for grade 1, step 1.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Palava, second by Councilman Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consider approval to make a conditional job offer to Kenyon Husted at grade 1, step 1, $16.06 an hour for a seasonal public works position. Mr. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Again, staff's next recommendation would be to make a conditional job offer to Kenyon Husted, seasonal public works employee, grade 1, step 1, $16.06. Husted said he applied for the position for a summer job and to stay busy. Again, like the others, interviewed well, has some experience operating equipment, has done concrete the last couple years. Again, was polite and seemed like he would do a good job. Being in high school, we'd be looking at a start date on or about June 5th. And again, no fall sports, so again, weather permitting through August.
We'll make a conditional job offer to Kenyon Husted, grade 1, step 1.
Motion by Councilman Kadada,
Second.
second by Councilperson Fear. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That concludes the planned agenda. On to department reports. Mr. Dornfeld.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Let's start with the sewer. I've been in contact with Al Busho. All of our boxes are checked and we're ready to go to haul biosolids. So as soon as he shows up, we'll empty those out. All the insurance claims that were submitted are settled and the equipment is all fixed and running. For the water department, the flushing of hydrants is set for April 24th through the 28th. For the parks, been very busy at the parks with the sun shining, cleaning everything up, grading parking lots, cleaning the snow. The skate park, I believe tomorrow will be the last of all the fixes. So all that equipment is sitting in our shop. Soccer fields, the plan is to set those up and paint those tomorrow. They've been calling, they want to get out and practice with the nice weather. Then I've been working quite a bit with Joel, Jamie, just people around town on the DRS project, the improvements. We've got the trees are down, the stumps are ground out. There's one more tree on the outside of the fence along 2nd Avenue that Public Works will take care of. And then street sweeping, Charlie's been busy. I guess one thing I'd like to say is I was really pleased with how many seasonal applicants that we got, and it was a pleasure to interview all of them. Public Works is just looking to create the culture that every year we get these same seasonals to return. So I'm looking forward to this summer.
Good, good. Good job there, sir.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Bonnie, anything else?
Just somewhat of a repeat from last council meeting in terms of our construction projects. The mill and overlay project, which also includes mill and overlay at City Hall and Fire Department parking lot. We have a pre-construction meeting next week with McNamara, but it's my understanding they want to get going right away in May. It's a couple-week duration. And then we've drafted some letters to residents in the other areas outside of the parking lots that we'll be sending once we have a firm schedule. The trail project, we're just getting contracts signed, and that one, the contractor indicated starting in June. It's about a 3-week project. Again, we've got letters ready to go to residents in those areas, along with the Trenda Park Trail drain tile installation. And then the Stika Skate Park, that we're looking at a pre-con the week of April 24th. They wanted to get going in May as well. And so we'll, in the next couple meetings, I'll have more information on concrete schedules for that. The CASA 4 project with the county, there's a pre-construction meeting next week. So we'll learn more about their schedule. And there's city sewer and water improvements with that, so we will be inspecting that as well. And I think Joel reported at the last meeting about signage and access to JC Park, and then keeping access to the dental office and smoke and those businesses. So that we will discuss with them again at the pre-con. So that's everyone's aware of that, since that is a change to what their traffic control plans had indicated. And then there was talk last time about community days and the detour. And then there is an open house on next Wednesday for the Highway 19 future project that maybe Joel will talk about. And then at the next council meeting, we will be bringing to you the variance documents for the chloride reduction variance, and kind of the application or documents or plan for your approval prior to submittal to the MPCA and that whole process. And that's all I had.
Okay. You sound like you're a busy person, I will say that.
Everyone is.
Thank you. Ms. Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, as Shabani said, the Highway 19 corridor study, the Lonsdale area, they're having an open house on April 20th from 6 to 8 at the IC Civic Center. The focus will be from 35 to the west towards Lonsdale, learn about the mill and overlay project and existing conditions of 19, review and provide feedback on proposed improvements. Some could be part of that mill and overlay project, some could be standalone. No presentation, just arrive and leave on your schedule. I'm sure we'll have maps laid out on the tables, and whether it's consultants or people from MnDOT there to answer your questions. So if anyone's interested in that. Also on Highway 19, was it Monday afternoon? We had a project management team meeting on the roundabout at 19 and County Road 2, narrowing down to the final option, the one that I guess we preferred at the city. Kind of keeps it in line, pretty close to what it is. It's just that if you're going west or north on 13 and you're going to turn on 96, which at the time they did their traffic counts was 2, it's pretty tight. So we're like, yeah, this is going to be here for a long time, so let's get it right and make it like you would any other roundabout.
Right.
So I don't think we got a date on our next meeting, but that'd be coming up here pretty quick. Attended the loss control meeting in Mankato. Jamie and I had virtual meetings with Golden Shovel and APG for updating our marketing videos. So we'll present those to the, make sure I get my dates right, the EDA on the 20th. Shabani touched base on project pre-cons. And then working with the insurance on getting a lot of the metal roofs on our properties replaced from that hailstorm, so long process.
Yeah, yeah. Okay,
That's
thank
it.
you, sir.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for all your hard work again. Good job. Jamie?
Yes. Still working on website quotes, waiting for one more, so that was pushed from tonight to the next council meeting. Monday is Park Board and Planning Commission, who's hosting the EDA for a joint housing discussion. Packets are going out for those tomorrow. I heard from Jake Wetzel, he's moving forward with the car wash at the new location, anticipating those plans Friday. So he will meet the submission deadline for May Planning Commission, and then that will be finalized at the second City Council in May.
Good deal.
Yes. Next Wednesday, we're hosting the Rice County Economic Development Professionals Group at City Hall. I'm hoping now that the snow has melted to drive around town and get more familiar. Joe's going to take me on a parks tour, so looking forward to that.
Can you take the gator?
Getting a lot of fence permits, shed permits. People are starting to think about summertime. Starting to get to know contractors better. Haven't heard anything on the skate park grant, but we were awarded the SHIP grant for Industrial Drive Demonstration Pedestrian Lane Project, so that's
Good,
exciting.
Good deal, yeah.
And we
good.
did include additional paint and signage that we discussed at the meeting too, so.
Good job. Again, that's a very good report tonight, so good. Yeah. That's why you work. Councilman Webb?
Yes, the library board meets next week, but I know Marguerite's gearing up for all the summer stuff and spring stuff she's trying to finish up. And then the liquor board, he already talked about it already, so you have all the reports.
Good. Thank you for your work, sir.
Thank you.
Councilman Cavada?
Parks and Planning and Zoning meet on Monday, and that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Councilperson Veer?
The EDA will meet next week, and as David said, the liquor met earlier this month, and they will be having a tasting on the first Saturday of May, and it will be a lot of spring beverages, so everybody can stop by and check out what the Lonsdale Liquor has to offer, and also a shout out, happy birthday to our liquor store manager, Lynette.
Oh, happy birthday, Lynette. Store is still as good as ever, profitable as ever?
Doing
all
well,
good?
yep.
Yeah, okay.
Always working to get the inventory numbers down, but that's just, an ongoing thing.
Yeah. I suppose with the price of product now, though, it's a lot more difficult to hold the dollar down.
Things
you
are
know.
shifting, there's more, delivery charges are going up as
Right.
gas prices go up, and it's a fluctuating number all the time.
Right.
So
Yep.
they're working their best to
Okay.
keep it under control.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Palava?
I've got nothing.
Good. I don't have too much other than I noticed there's some settlements in town. I mentioned that to Joel and Joel there. So like up on, Westerman's Hill there, it was just settlements? I mean, you didn't find any water leaks or anything? Have you noticed? Sinkholes, yeah.
Sinkholes.
Not like Florida or, you know, or-
St. Paul.
but,
Right.
because the lady did comment, she thought her pressure was low, but is water pressure generally low up there? Or not
When
necessarily?
we went there, I didn't notice, I
Any-
didn't consider it to be low.
Oh, okay.
That depression, I don't know if it was from a snow plow or something early in the season,
Okay.
but there, you know, all of our techniques, nothing was leaking, nothing was.
Okay. Okay, well, I appreciate you checking on it anyway, so. Okay, I don't have anything else other than all the staff did a really good job tonight, a lot of good reports, and it looks like we're all on the right track here, so, good job. Motion by Councilman Karada.
Second.
Second by Councilperson Fuhr. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This meeting's adjourned.